outlay. Now, to show how everything springs out of this, all of this era in the world, the tongues thing springs from this. Northern Israel was carried away captive in 722 BC when Hoshea was the king of northern Israel. This is northern Israel. This is southern Judah. Now, out of Judah would come the king. That was comprised of the two tribes of Judah and Benjamin, but they named the southern kingdom Judah after, they named it Judah after the tribe, but Benjamin joined Judah in the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom was called Northern Israel, or it was called Samaria, or it was called Joseph, or it was called Ephraim, because Ephraim was Joseph's second-born son, and you receive that blessing to receive the inheritance of Israel. So the inheritance comes out of northern Israel, and Ephraim headed up these northern tribes. So anytime you see Ephraim long after he's dead, it's a reference to northern Israel. Or if you see Joseph referred to as a nation, it's northern Israel. Or you see Samaria, it's northern Israel. Judah was called southern Judah, but after the split, I keep saying this, after the split, when you see something referring to Israel, it's talking about northern Israel. If it says Israel before, it's the united tribes, all the 12 tribes before they're split. Always northern Israel is referred to Israel after the split, and southern Israel is referred to Judah. And of course, we know that northern Israel, through Ahab, goes after Baal in the grove, and God says, I'll scatter you after I keep sending the sword, the famine, the pestilence. And he kept sending sword, famine, disease of all kinds, no rain. Your enemy's coming against you with the sword. They'll conquer you. They'll cut off all these highways for food to come in. And this is the judgments of God that'll come upon you. And finally, he carries northern Israel away captive. Now, this is very, very important. Northern Israel never received any decrees to come back from the captivity. Only southern Judah received that. And southern Judah is carried away captive in 586 BC under the rule of Zedekiah, the king of southern Judah. Northern Israel under Hoshea. And it was Assyria that carried northern Israel away. And then, after Syria carries northern Israel away in 722 BC, there's always an empire trying to rise up. Well, finally, Babylon rises and overthrows Assyria. The Assyrian Empire, that is the Caucasian Empire. That is the Caucasus Mountains between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea are right up here. Right up here, that's the Caucasus Mountains. And in northern Mesopotamia, Mesopotamia meaning between the rivers, Mesopotamia was the Euphrates here, the Tigris here, and they come and they meet down here about 75 miles north of the Persian Gulf right here, and this is what we call Iraq. In the ancient world, that was called Babylon. Iran over to Afghanistan and to Pakistan. When you get over to India, that was the Persian Empire. So when Babylon comes in, they overthrow. They come in and carry southern Judah away into captivity in 586 BC. And I'm going to tie together these two things, halakah and the tongues. I'm not going to spend much time on the tongues, but I'm going to spend time on the halakah, but just show you that the tongues thing, I'm not talking about Pentecostal tongues. We're talking about the glossa and the dialects. Glossa and the dialectos. The glossa and the dialectos are a result of Israel going after Baal in the grove, or Hercules and Venus, birthday being December the 25th. The tongues is a result of Israel going after Baal in the grove, going after Baal and Hercules, or Baal who is Hercules and the grove who is Venus. They come out of the same thing. When Israel is carried away, I'll just give you the thing about the tongues, and this will take us into halakah. Now, when Israel is carried away, they're carried away in 586 BC. Then there's always, when Rome was ruling during the first century, they weren't ruling everyone. They were the controlling power in the world. Always when there is a huge empire ruling the most of the civilized world. There's little bubbling empires all over here, and they're trying to rise up to get big enough to whip these guys so they can be the world rulers. It's the toughest guy in the neighborhood is all it's about. And they say, we want to rise up. And the Greeks were rising for about 800 years before they got big enough and they got powerful enough under Alexander the Great to conquer the Persian Empire. Well, Babylon carries Israel away. Babylon. Babylon began at Babel. Babel. Don't think that Babylon was something different than Babel. That's where it started. Babylon mothered all idolatry on self or on let us make us a name. And of course, southern Judah was carried away in 586 BC by Babylon. Well, in 539 BC, 539 years before Christ, the Persians, or the Persian Mede Empire, put it like should be Persian Mede Empire, which is the bear of Daniel 7. The Persian Mede Empire overthrows Babylon in 539. And then in 538 BC, southern Judah, only southern Judah gets the decree to rebuild the temple that Nebuchadnezzar had destroyed in 586 in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is in southern Judah. Southern Judah was destroyed, and then Persia overthrows Babylon, and then in 538, the year later, after Persia overthrows Babylon, Cyrus, the king of Persia, gives the first decree for Israel to go back and rebuild the temple. And then, of course, in 536, they get all of this, 536 BC, they get all of this opposition, and they have to come up, and they cease building 2 years after they start building. And then God sends two men along in 520 BC, and that's Haggai and Zechariah. And these are the two men that tell Israel to get back up off their tails and start building again. And they do that under Darius, the Mede Persian king. He's a Mede, but it's in the Persian Empire. And then in 516 BC, they finish building the empire, and that is 70 years after they're carried away, and they spend 70 years in Babylon. 70 years in Babylon. Well, while they are under the rule, I'll give you this, and then I'll get back to Persia. Of course, in around 332 BC, the Persian Empire, Persia is the bear. Babylon is the lion of Daniel 7. And then in 332, Alexander the Great, looks like Assembly of God, doesn't it? AG. Alexander the Great of the Grecian Empire overthrows the Persian Empire, but they're all ruling Israel. And they're ruling the world. And then, of course, around 33, somewhere around 33 to 27 BC, this is where Rome rises up as an empire. They were a republic long before that. But they rise up as an empire, and they're the beast with iron teeth, and they begin to rule all the world. But they don't rule everything. There's always a bubbling empire. Persia was a bubble that's bubbling, trying to get big enough to overthrow Babylon, and they finally did. And the Greeks, they were a little bubble, and they kept growing and growing until they got powerful enough to overthrow the Persians. And then the one that overthrew everyone, the one that conquered all, was iron teeth, and that was Rome. But back to Alexander the Great. while Alexander the Great, and of course the reason